That's right. You see it on this episode of the Athletes Forum podcast. We talk to the ownership of team number 18 of the European League of Football, Michael Planeta, Randy Schrader. And this is what they said.
We doing everything they talk about. You know I'm everything a boss about. Not putting work and gotta toss them out. I'm really biting, they just barking out. I'm really riding, they just parking now. His street, what to talk about. See the big H when I'm walking out. Yeah.
All right. Well, welcome to the Athletes Forum podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. Shout out to the locker room, the ones that keep coming back and dropping comments, and we interact through the video. I appreciate all your support. If you haven't already, continue to subscribe, share with a friend, and let's keep all these conversations going. This is gonna be a fun one. There's no hiding that about it. There was some breaking news that dropped this past weekend in the European League of Football. And I think it's something that a lot of people have been waiting for, an additional team, and especially where the location of this team is just brings a different level of excitement. So I'm excited to talk with the new brass, the new ownership, the new people in charge of the team that is heading up north. And yes, that is the Nordic Storm, first team that is Copenhagen and Malmo, so has two countries incorporated, which could be something we see in the future. But let's enough of me talking about it. Let's bring in the guys that are going to make this magic happen. So I welcome the ownership group, Michael Planeta and Randy Schrader, to the mix. So what's going on, guys? How's everyone doing?
Very good, thanks. How are you?
Randy, how you doing, my man?
Thanks for having us, Jamal. I'm doing well. I'm excited to be here. And I always say this when I'm on, whether it's Shady Sports or talking with you, but thank you guys so much for all you do to cover, the ELF and kind of the niche sports, especially from the American side, and growing the sport. So we're just excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And someone who's, lived that life and, been in a player over there and continue to follow and see how it grows, I'm definitely excited. I think I told you this briefly. My brief relationship with Copenhagen has only been 12 hours waiting for a delayed train. So I'm excited to learn more about, the team that's going to be heading up there, and obviously part Copenhagen, part Malmo. But the team that, you guys are, about to put together and get incorporated into the ELF. And I think right from that, I'll start with saying that, Mike, since this was first like an idea, a thought, and then leading up to obviously this past weekend where it became official and announced, describe obviously the, how you're feeling, the emotions, the roller coaster you've been on the past 2 years to get the Nordic Storm to where they are right now.
It's going to be a long talk then, for sure. For the first time I really heard about the ELF is about three and a half years ago. So it might not even have been the first season. It might even have been the second. But I got approached by Palle, who was our GM, and he talked to me about this because his son was playing for the Galaxy at that point. Joachim Christensen, as you might know, the former center of the Rhine Fire. And that small thing was, in my mind, just a thing of, I don't think that's doable in Denmark. And then we had a couple of talks, and it was pretty much still the same. And then ongoing here and there, small drips of somebody still talking with somebody still doing something. And all of a sudden, I heard of Randy talking with Jacob, who's the former chairman of the Towers. And that started the snowball effect, and now we're here about a year and a half later from that introduction. It's been a wild ride for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even knowing that this was a multi-year process, this wasn't just something like, hey, I think a team might work, and the year later, we got it in the European League of Football. And you said obviously, it's been a roller coaster, and when that first initial thought came that this is a potential happening. Obviously, you had just mentioned it might not work. What was some of the pre-concerned doubts you had going into it? Because whenever you're branching off into any business, there's always got to be, risk management. But what were some of the thoughts that you had to overcome in order to get to, this is actually going to work? This is actually a realistic possibility.
I think you can sum that up to two very simple things: money and player potential. Do you have the staff and players to do this, and do you have the money to actually effectuate everything? So I mean, that's the biggest two things. What we've realized, and especially since launch, is that if you build it, they will come for sure. um, we've been hit by a storm for sure of people, players, coaches, old players that want to get involved on sponsorships and marketing, that just want to be involved, standing on the sideline, who wants to be even a chain gang. So everybody just wants to be part of this. So the excitement level of creating this in the North has been far above and beyond what I could have imagined. I was thinking, okay, we'll launch and it'll be okay, but we've been hit by a storm for sure.
Yeah, and it's only gonna continue to grow as we head into, like, the off season more and more, and obviously signings and stuff like that begins to start happening. Randy, for someone who I could relate in terms of, I played overseas, played in Switzerland, for the Cologne Broncos. Although they don't have a team, obviously, I root for the team in Switzerland. You're someone who's played in Copenhagen. You know the team, know the market, know the guys, and now there's an ELF team in Copenhagen slash Malmo, but representing the northern region. Why is now a good fit for the ELF to have a team in that market?
Yeah. Well, first of all, those people over there are like family to me, and having played overseas for years, I know you can relate. You just build so many good relationships. And there was nothing that I wanted to see more than an ELF team, because in my opinion, and Michael's, I know it's the future of football in Europe. And so getting a team to the Copenhagen region was paramount, not only for development of the youth, but for those senior players that need something to kind of propel them to a season to look forward to, instead of just their national league. So I think that's why this was a good time. Also, the league is no longer in its infancy. I think it's kind of starting to prove itself. There's 41,000 people at a championship game last year. This is the time to do it, is now. And Michael was actually the one who was pushing that. I think some of us on the board were like, maybe 2026. And Michael was like, we do this now. And so we're excited about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Even reading your statement you guys put out, it seems like, the board and the group you guys have where they're in charge, you guys have realistic expectations heading into the European League of Football. I think some teams come in and they're like, we're gonna build a team, we're gonna compete, we're gonna win as many games as possible. And just reading, like, where you guys want to take this, and obviously setting a goal for 2030 to be, continued, a playoff caliber team, just shows and demonstrates that, like, you see the long-term vision, and you're not just, there to, like, microwave success right in the beginning process. This may take a bit. Randy, from your experience, obviously a former player, what's the league getting from homegrown talent in the northern region?
Yeah, they're getting a lot. So when I started playing in football in Europe, it was 2018, and I was playing with the Copenhagen Towers.
Man, you old.
Yeah, I'm old. I just turned 30. I just turned 30 this year. I just came back from Europe. I was taking like luggage off of the carousel, and I think I threw out my shoulder. It's been hurting me for like days. I'm getting old. But yeah, so in 2018, I came over, and we were a top 10 ranked team in Europe that year. We ended up winning the NEFL. We ended up losing to the Swarco Raiders and Platscummer in that game before he went and played for the Giants. But we were competitive in that game, and that was just Denmark. Now we get to combine that with Sweden. So what the ELF is getting is a competitive team of homegrowns from the jump. There's some good football in Sweden and in Denmark, and there's a lot of players that are playing already right now in the ELF, in the GFL, coming back from college, that sort of thing. So we're just trying to put together the best team of homegrowns that we can.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And you already just spoke on it. You think of Jakob Christian, who played for the Fire, now retired, or at least for now, there's going to be rumors if he comes back or not. But now retired, you think of, Anton Jallet, wide receiver, played for the Leipzig Kings. Theo Landstrom, Aslan Zetterberg. Like, you could go on and on. There's a lot of talent that stems from the northern regions that are in the ELF now making a name for themselves. It'd be interesting and see if you guys are able to lure that talent back. I think that would be a great foundation, but you guys will know way more than I do in terms of like where your board is. So that'll be interesting in that capacity. And that obviously brings me to this topic where it's a big talking subject in regards to competitive balance, right? Everyone always talks about blowouts. There's blowouts all over Europe, GFL, France League, Italian League. There's blowouts all over. There's always going to be some type of unbalance, but there's ways to bridge that gap. With building a new team, starting from scratch, you look at, Paris and Munich a couple years ago. You look at Madrid last year, and you look at some of those new teams that have had success. What are your thoughts on creating or building a competitive team for the Nordic Storm? And I'll go to Michael. I'm sorry, I didn't know if I said that beforehand.
I think everything starts with the head coach. So we need to figure out who's able to install that mentality in our franchise, and also be open to having something that needs to be built from the ground up. Most of the players, or at least a big part of our players, will never have played something like pro football before. They played high level, but they won't have played pro football. So it's going to be a total different monster to tackle. But if you look at Madrid, as you say, if you look at Munich, if you look at some of these other newer franchises, they do have the opportunity to go in there and do these things in the right way and actually do upsets. So, I mean, blowouts will happen. They even happen in the NFL. But the most important part is that if you get into a blowout, even though you deliver it or you get it handed to you, don't give up. It's a matter of dusting yourself off and then moving on from there. But from our perspective, it starts with good coaching. It starts with having a staff that backs that good coaching. And by staff, I mean us as the board and ownership. I mean the other staff that we will hire, and just backing them up as much as possible, and then giving them the opportunity to have that player roster to be built in a proper manner. But it also, most likely in our sense, that's also why we aim for 2030 to be a common playoff contender.
Yeah.
We need to do something academy-wise in terms of younger people and helping them grow and giving them a flagship to look up to and these things. Because some of the people that we are generally interested is maybe today 17. So they need 2-3 years to grow and have that proper coaching via clinics, via something that we can actually help them with.
Yeah, I'm actually glad you said that. But before I dive into that, I just want to touch on this real quick, Mike. And let's take Madrid, since they were the new team, last year, the only new team. And as of now, unless something else, breaks, that this is going to be you guys heading into 25. Like, what are some things either that you've seen from afar or some takeaways you saw from the Madrid organization in terms of, how they went about heading into the season or the type of success they had? Because even as a new team playing in what was probably one of the toughest conference in the ELF, they still found a way to make the playoffs. Is there anything you've seen or could take away and maybe work to implement or use as an idea to create the Nordic Storm?
We've actually had quite a handful of good dialogues with Madrid in terms of learning from them, and that's something that's amazed me about the league. It is how open and sharing they are about welcoming new teams and helping them grow something that's a proper product. What they've done, I think, successfully is not be scared of taking that jump and making an effort of doing something, whether it being spending money or just taking a leap up. They pretty much entirely hired an American coaching staff. Yeah. That's most likely not going to be our method. We'll probably hire 2 to 4 Americans, and then the rest is going to be split pretty much 50-50 between the Swedes and the Danes. Because we do want to install that Nordic feeling of the team and not something that's American built. But I definitely see that as a strong suit of what they did, of actually purchasing a full coaching staff that knew exactly what they did. Because if you look at the Danish national team, if they any given day went up against the Spaniards, most likely we would beat them. So for that opportunity for them and go out there and buy an entire coaching staff and making that high level there, I think that's a very, very good statement of what it takes.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, it worked. It worked. But there's a lot of ways to get to like point A, and obviously you mentioned there's different ways you could go about it. And but it was pretty cool to see a new team have that success that they did have in one of the toughest conferences, in the European League of Football. Just on building an academy and talking with like creating relationships with like the local organizations. Obviously, when a new team comes into the league, regardless of the market, there's going to be some type of hit, whether it's with talent or resources to like the local clubs and players and all that. But we have seen teams, great relationships like the Fire and Dusseldorf have a relationship. Madrid and I know the Spanish, the local Spanish teams are close. Stuttgart, there are ELF teams partnering up with their local clubs to not necessarily take talent from one another, but find a way to grow football together within their markets. What does that look like for you guys? Have you even talked about that? What does that look like in terms of talking with like local teams or using local resources to help build the Nordic Storm?
We for sure both addressed the federations in both countries and also every single club actually, and we've done that with open arms and open doors. It's very important for us to show and also in effect do, as we say, and that's going to be a partnership of growing football. We're not here to hurt anybody. We're here to grow football, and we're here to do something that people can aim at. That's going to be, of course, it's going to be in the details of what we wind up doing. But what we have suggested is that having an opportunity for every single coach who wants to join a practice and stand behind the wide receiver coach because he wants to bring something home to his club, and he's going to do that free of charge. Hopefully, we'll be able to host clinics as well, and every single thing we can do to grow the coaching staffs, to bring that back home free of charge, so they can grow better people, so we can actually have better people in the future. So we'll do as much as we can to both invite people in so they can learn, but also just be open and honest on what we do, everyone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I definitely can understand like that perspective. Randy, again, you're someone that's played, if you weren't an American, you'd probably be, living in Copenhagen. For someone who knows the market, the players and stuff like that, we all know a lot of great ELF teams have a great foundation of homegrown players, right? So, with that being said, obviously there might have been guys either reaching out to you, have questions or stuff like that. What's been some of the, I guess, feedback, some of the responses from when the Nordic Storm were officially announced, and how's that look for the Nordic Storm heading into the off season?
Well, I think what Michael said earlier about the response being overwhelming. I mean, I think I have literally hundreds of messages from people that want to play, want to coach, just want to be involved, and that's awesome. That's why we're doing it. And we didn't necessarily expect that big of a boost, but it's so good to see how well it's being received. And like you said, Jamal, it's all about building that homegrown talent. And to piggyback on what Michael's saying about coaching clinics and stuff, I mean, we obviously would like to be involved eventually too, with growing the youth. So it's just, we want to give back as much as we can to Denmark and Sweden, and eventually it helps all the clubs, and in the end it helps us too.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this: what does, if any, right? Doesn't necessarily mean it has to happen, but what are there any plans to incorporate? Because again, you guys are now officially the most northern team. Are there any plans to incorporate Finland and Norway? Obviously, they won't be considered homegrowns, but are those markets that are going to be of interest into tapping into for you guys?
Well, absolutely. That's part of the reason why we chose the name Nordic. We want it to be all encompassing. And trust me, We tried to get Norway and Finland as homegrowns. The league put the kibosh on that, but we are grateful that they gave us Sweden. But that by all means, we want it to be a Nordic team. We don't want it to just be a Danish or Swedish team. We want it to be a Nordic franchise.
Most definitely. And as I mentioned before, it seems like you guys already have a good foundation in terms of expectations and values and heading into the off season. What does it look like going forward for you, Mike? What's next in line, for you? Whether it's on the field, off the field, what's next for the Nordic Storm in the next coming weeks?
I think it'll probably signing a head coach and announcing that's a good first step. Secondly, we need to do our combines. We need to do our invites and tryouts so we can build that proper team. I mean, on our current radar, we probably have, let's call it 40 guys that we're pretty sure that we want to be a part of this. We just need to find the last 25. Then, of course, it's a matter of we do have the 40 that we do like. It's not necessarily the same as we actually sign them, but we do have about 2/3 of what we think is a proper roster. Then the next steps, of course, is partnership deals, sponsorship deals, signing the rest of the coaching staff. It's getting everything ready for power parties. It's getting everything ready for stadium days. It's getting all of these small things here and there ready for being the best product that we can actually deliver both on and off the field.
Absolutely, and it sounds like you gotta be busy over the next couple months with attacking.
Yeah, and this isn't even my day job, so yeah.
Yeah. This is something that's gonna keep you awake at night, but in more in a fun way, so to say. You mentioned it, your stadium. I don't want to mess it up. Can you pronounce the name of your stadium for me?
In Danish, it's Gladsaxe.
Oh, I wasn't that far off. So Gladsaxe?
Glad. It's a soft D. Gladsaxe.
Gladsaxe. All right. So your new stadium, obviously, the fans. Your organization knows. There's partnerships with Copenhagen Towers, the Owls, Tigers. You kind of have a feeling of the fans in that market. What does a home field advantage look like for you guys?
I actually think there's two things to it. The Danish football community, for only talking that side, has always been very, very tightly knit. So they are very good at supporting sports in general and coming out and watching the games. If there's something of value to see, of course, nobody wants to see somebody getting hurt or being pounded by 100-0. But if there's a good product, people will come for sure. Secondly, the entire Copenhagen area is covering about 1.5 million people. And then on top of that, you build the Malmö region into that. So now you're talking about 2.5 million people that within 15 to 45 minutes can be at the stadium. So that's a pretty good crowd to build on. What Gladsaxe then is actually a really, really good stadium compared to a lot of the other ELF stadiums. It's a very close stadium to the field, so you're actually sitting on it as a spectator, which is awesome. So you don't have that ring around it that actually moves people away, so you're on it. Secondly, it's built in a very good way, so it gets really loud. So even though you're only halfway full, you get attention and you get loud on that field. So that's a very good home field advantage for us to have.
I'm excited to see what this first game's gonna look like. I'm excited to see.
I'm guessing 8,000 people, full stadium, fireworks and cheerleaders, and there we go.
Randy Schrader maybe coming out of retirement to play court. No, I'm just playing.
Yeah, I mean, I played my last season this year, so I might even do so as well.
Jamal, my wife would kill me, so no.
Those days might be long gone for both of us. Randy, before I get to this, and I've already asked you, but I want to ask Mike the same question. You spent this last weekend at the ELF Championship around a lot of, decision makers, around a lot of coaches and owners and GMs and stuff like that. So this is kind of a two-part question. What are your feelings on, one, where the league is going? And second question is, what's the best advice you've gotten at the ELF Championship weekend about, how to go about the Nordic Storm or just in general?
Oh, sorry. I thought you were asking Mike. Okay.
Yeah, it's Mike.
Okay.
I think one of the best advices I got from the other teams, if I'm going to start with that, is probably just don't be afraid to reach out. That open door from the other teams was very good to have, and the embrace of people just sharing from the get-go was amazing. So that's a very big thing. That it's not like people are holding their cards close. It is an open book, especially off season anyway. It might be a different way in the on season, but yeah. The second part of the question was,
like what direction is the league headed?
oh yeah, I see something like MLS in the US. I see something that is sort of a grassroots movement, something that is starting small, 8 teams. Now we're at 18. Product is getting better, attention is getting better, traction is getting better. I'm thinking, give it 5-10 years, then you're looking at something MLS like.
That'd be cool. I know the initial thought was 24 teams, and obviously seeing where everything's happened within the 4 years. Can they get to 24? That's gonna be the biggest question mark. Can they get to 20? I think they could, but we'll see. We'll see how everything continues to develop. And one thing for sure is that, like, no matter how many times the league has been doubted, no matter how many times there's been backlash against the league, they've always found a way to improve in something. So we'll see how it continues to go. Before we close this out, Randy, I have one more question for you, and that is, outside of obviously that first home game, I know that's going to be an exciting time. Outside of like watching the product, on the field and everything come together, what's the one thing you're excited to see or excited to experience now in the front office? You're away from the field now in the front office of an ELF team, as in the Nordic Storm.
Yeah, there's two things. So on just the business side, I'm really excited to be a part of this great group of people and help grow business. And for me, an international business. I mean, I'm just so proud and thankful to be a part of it with guys like Michael and Lars and Jacob and Peter Fries and Paolo Christensen. I mean, it's just a great group of guys and a great group of people that I'm excited to build and grow and learn from. And then on just the personal, emotional side, I already am having visions of seeing like the guys that I played with and that I, bled for and, stepped out on the field for, every week, going out there and having a blast, and doing something at the highest level they can in Europe. I just think that feeling at that first game is going to be overwhelming. But I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, I can't even imagine in terms of, the excitement. And obviously it's not just one country, it's 2 countries, but really you guys are representing obviously the North. So I'm excited to see how all that comes together. But hey, I appreciate you guys and the time and, talk some Nordic Storm. This has been a great conversation, and I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate you. Thank you, Jamal.
Absolutely. And as I tell all my guests, this won't be the last time we talk. I'm sure, we'll have more talks, down the road. Excited to see who the head coach is and excited to see who the quarterback's going to be and how you guys put this team together. So thank you all for tuning in. Subscribe to the channel, drop a comment, follow the Nordic Storm on all platforms. And the ELF has a 18th team, and it is the Nordic Storm. Thank you, guys.